going to ask you a question. What is the most expensive purchase of your life? House? Kids' college? Wrong. For millions of Americans, it's getting sick. And it's not the disease, it's the bill. And the Republican plan for you to pay off your medical debt is to go further into debt. The New York Times reported this week what's happening to Americans 6 months after Republicans let the enhanced Obamacare subsidies die. Medical debt is exploding. And let's start here. The enhanced ACA tax credits expired at the end of last year because Republicans refused to extend them. The marketplace premiums then jumped harder than they have in nearly a decade. So you had families sitting down at the kitchen table having to do the worst kind of math. Can I afford my insulin or can I afford my groceries? And millions of Americans lost. The Congressional Budget Office projects that nearly 5 million Americans will end up uninsured because of it. Pennsylvania alone has watched 120,000 people cancel their coverage since November. And these aren't freeloaders. These are not undocumented immigrants. These are self-employed couples. They're small business owners, people in their 50s and 60s who get charged the most for coverage. And they were leaning on those credits so that they could afford coverage. And what happens when these people get sick? Because everyone does. That's the one guarantee in all of this. Those people will walk through the only door that legally can't close on them, the emergency room. And they're going to walk out with a bill that they can't pay. Americans are already carrying more than $220 billion in medical debt. And every expert in any of the reporting says that the pressure that this is creating are about to intensify. And Republicans, you know what they're telling you to do? Take out a loan to cover the debt. That's their plan. Cover your debt with more debt. People are skipping their checkups, stretching their prescriptions. They're negotiating cash rates with psychiatrists every 3 months just so they can keep their medications current. For many, their only health care plan is hoping for the best. And let me put a face on it for you. A self-employed couple in Indiana paid about $9,000 for insurance last year. This year, the same coverage came back at over $23,000. So they did what any of us would do. They downgraded to a plan that had a $10,000 deductible each. They were already carrying $10,000 in medical debt from the husband's open heart surgery. That family, they did everything right. They worked, they bought insurance, they paid their bills, and the system still found a way to put them underwater, and then Congress threw them a lead life ring. You know, I used to be a Republican. I genuinely believed that the market would sort this out, that competition would drive prices down like it would for a TV. And then I spent years looking at actual data. And the market's grand solution to a heart attack turned out to be a payment plan at 24% interest. Healthcare isn't a television. You can't comparison shop from the back of an ambulance. Insurance and healthcare in America is nothing more than a cartel. You don't have a say. And these stories are happening everywhere. And all you hear from Republicans is how everyone else in the world has terrible healthcare and pays way more for it. But remember the facts. This country, the United States, already spends roughly twice as much per person on healthcare as the average wealthy country. Double. Nobody on this planet pays more for healthcare than you do. We just don't want to call it taxes. That's the big debate here. And for that price, that double price, we get shorter lifespans, worse outcomes, and the only system in the developed world where a diagnosis is a death sentence. In Germany, cancer is considered a medical emergency. Here, it's a foreclosure risk. If you went out there and paid twice as much for a car, you'd expect a better car. We pay twice as much and we die younger. We are last among wealthy nations in health outcomes. There is no other market in American life where we would tolerate this crap. And we only tolerate this one because they have convinced us it's just how it is. We can't raise your taxes, but we're going to raise your costs. And the people who did this to you, they know all of it. Trump and his party didn't stumble into this outcome. They were told in writing by the CBO exactly how many millions would lose coverage if these credits lapsed. They let them lapse anyway in the same stretch where they passed a tax bill showering money on the type of people who will never in their lives see a hospital bill that they can't pay. The Republicans' consolation prize for you? A catastrophic plan with a $10,000 deductible, which is insurance in the same way that a smoke detector with no batteries can put out a house fire. Remember, this was their choice. Medical debt at this scale doesn't exist in any other rich country because every other rich country chose wisely. We pay the most, we get the least, and the people in charge keep working to widen the gap because their pockets continue to get lined. So the next time somebody shrugs and tells you that the system can't be fixed, remember, they didn't fail to fix it. They voted to break it. Do me a favor, comment below. Let me know what's happened to your healthcare costs in the last year. Mine have gone through the roof because they are counting on you forgetting about it by November, and we can't let them.